everybody, it's Dana and welcome back. Today is day 9 of the holiday card series. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's products is coming to you from scrapbook.com. I'm using this Slimline Christmas foliage. Love these long Slimline stamp sets. And I'm also going to be using some Slimline dies as well. And I'm also going to be using paper this time. I'm going to use this paper a little bit later, but I wanted to share with you that you can use paper for your color combos as well. The 8 colors that will go perfect for this color combo are from Concord and Ninth, and they're Midnight, Sky Blue, Peacock, and Stardust. All right, let's go ahead and get into the card. So I did cut down a piece of Nina Solar White 110-pound cardstock to a little bit shorter than a 8.5 by 3.5 or 3.5 by 8.5 inch card base, because I want to make sure that I have a border around this. So I'm going to put this in my MISTI so I know I'm going to get a really great impression when I stamp this out. Now I am going to put in my sticky mat because I'm not going to have anywhere to stick a magnet on my paper. So by using a sticky grid mat, that's going to help me keep the paper in place, because again, I'm using a full card panel here and a stamp set that's going to cover all of it. So again, I don't have any room to place down that magnet. I will line this up. Now this stamp happens to be larger than what I cut out, and that's fine. I'll close the lid and then I can pick up and we can start working on our colors. So again, the ink color is coming out of those ink color combo, and I'm using the Concord and Ninth colors. So I'm going to start with the Midnight, and I'm going to kind of put this on a diagonal and have like a nice little color blend. The next color I'm coming in with is Peacock. Now I'm going to show you a way to use these colors with just using cardstock, and that's going to be a little bit later in the video. The third color I'm coming in with is Aqua Sky. So I'm getting my blues out of the way, and I'm just tapping that on there, making sure to overlap my first color. And then the last color is going to be Stardust. Now on the ink combo guide, it says a gold accent. But I want to show you, if you have a yellowy color gold ink color, you can replace that with the gold. I'm going to give that some really good pressure. I'm using my stamping tool for this, and I'm just going back and forth, making sure it makes contact with the paper. Now this is a very large stamp, so that's why I really want to make sure I get coverage on this. And now we have this pretty blend of colors. Now I do want to go back in and do a second round of this, just because I want my ink to be a little bit more saturated on my paper. So I started again with the Aqua. I went back with my Peacock. I'll go back with the Navy right across the top, and then I can come in again with that Stardust. I think this would be gorgeous if it was stamped on paper and gold heat embossed with these colors blended over it. I think that would be just as gorgeous. So one more time, I'm going to press down really well on there. I want to make sure I get contact everywhere on that paper. And then look how pretty this is. Now you can totally mass produce this card in so many color combos. This just happens to be the one I'm using today. And this one here, this color combo is number 10 in the ink combos guide. All right, let's go ahead and start finishing up this card. I did decide that I wanted to back this. So I am backing this with some of the scrapbook.com paper pad. I'll show you the paper pads a little bit later, but I believe this one came out of the jewel tones. And I like that navy as a backer because I think it just really makes it look good. It can actually go for a masculine card as well. I am going to use that navy cardstock as well to heat emboss the sentiment in this stamp set. Now the sentiment in this stamp set is rather large, and I do like that because with having this size of a sentiment, I really don't have to use any other element on my card as far as wording. So I'll press that down, and I do want to heat emboss this. I thought about maybe doing it in white, but I'm going to go ahead and use that gold where I can. So I'm going to heat emboss this in gold. I'm first making sure I use my anti-static powder tool to make sure I don't get any of that gold embossing powder on the paper. And then I'm using my VersaMark ink. Now the thing you can do with this VersaMark ink, and I kind of thought about it after the video, is that I could have stamped it and then shifted the cardstock just a wee bit to have that as a backdrop to my gold. I think I might try that next time I use this stamp set. Now I'm going to place that back in there because I can see a few areas that I might not have hit. So once again, I'm going to ink up that stamp and then stamp that back down again. I really hope you guys have been enjoying this holiday card series. I've had so much fun this year, and I love that Christina and I were able to provide you guys with the ink combos guide. If you still need to pick up that guide, it is over on my blog in the sidebar. So I'm going to come in with that gold embossing powder, and I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle that over. And look how pretty the navy and the gold looks together. Absolutely love it. I'll tap off any excess that I might have just to make sure I don't get any strays. Once I tap that all off, we can go ahead and heat set this. Now remember, anytime you're heat setting, you do want to make sure that you get your gun nice and hot before you bring it to the paper. Again, it helps with not warping your paper. So you'll always see me anytime I'm getting ready to heat emboss. I always test it out on my hand first before I start. And look how gorgeous that is. So pretty. All right, now we can go ahead and start building up the card. I am going to trim this down because, like I said, that's a really large sentiment and I don't need all of that blue showing. So I have my Fiskars trimmer here. And what I like to do is line up the top or the sides of the wording right along the bar part of my cutter. And that's going to guarantee that I have even coverage all around. So one side is not going to be bigger than the other. So I'll show you one more time. I kind of put it in there, put down my paper, line up the gauge, and then I can trim. And I know I'm going to have equal amounts of paper on all four sides. And now we can go ahead and start putting this card together. Like I said, I wanted to have a navy border around this colorful piece. So each one, so the card itself is 3.5 by 8.5. And I've went down a quarter on each one of these sizes. So I'll have like a nice mat. I'll have the navy mat around this piece. And then I'll have the cardstock will be white to be a border around my navy piece. I think just doing that adds a little bit more colorfulness to your card. I could have did a white on white, but I really believe it would have got lost. So now I can use my glue. And I'm using a good amount of glue because this is a larger card. And I will go ahead and place that down on the card base. I think this might only be my second card, second or third maybe. Slimline card. I don't make them very often, but I have done one already in this series. So this would be number 2 in this series. And look how gorgeous that fa la 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 looks. Now I'm going to grab some thick tape here. This is my 3M, whew, that's a mouthful, 3M foam tape. And I'm going to place it on the back because I do want this to have a little bit of height to this. So once I have that on there, I can go ahead and flip that over. And this card's going to be done. Now, when I was doing this and rewatching the video, because I am doing a voiceover, I felt like, I blocked a lot of that teal color, that Aqua Sky and Peacock. So I felt the need to kind of bring that back in a little bit. I mean, you can see it poking out on the side and you can kind of see the color shifts, but I felt like I kind of lost a little bit of that color. So instead of adding anything extra layers of paper, I'm just going to come in with some gems because, you know, gems make everything better. And this is a mix of between the Peacock and Aqua Sky. So it's like a kind of hybrid of those two colors in a gem. And I'm just gonna place a few of those around on my card panel. I don't wanna have too many of them, but I do wanna have a little bit of sparkle to this card. So I placed a few of them around and I went ahead and I'm gluing on my last one. And I'm so glad I did add these gems to it because once again, it just gives me a little bit of sparkle, but it really does start to emphasize that aqua and peacock color that I lost out on. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set this card aside and I'm going to show you how to do this with the paper pads. So I've pulled colors out of the Jules, Harvest, and Sherbet paper pads from scrapbook.com, and I want to die cut these out. I'm going to have little strips of this, and see these colors work perfectly with the colors from the Concord and Ninth, the ink colors that we used earlier. This paper matches perfectly with those. So in order to get these strips, remember I shared or showed you the dies. These are the Slimline dies, also from scrapbook.com, and you can get so many stripes out of this. I'm just going to use 2 of these and die cut out some strips. Now, since I have all of my strips ready, I can start getting ready to build up my card. Now, this was a pretty simple card that came together really, really quickly. I have a piece of vellum here, and I'm going to use this vellum to stamp out some snowflakes. And I'm using this Slimline snowflakes, also from scrapbook.com. And I'm going to line up that vellum on a grid sheet. Now I will come in and place that large snowflake right on top. Now once I have this in position, I can go ahead and swing my MISTI door and pick this up. Now it is a brand new stamp, so my paper or my vellum did stick to it, but because I used that grid, I was able to place that right back in there with no worry. I am going to do a little bit of heat embossing on this, so I have my powder tool. And then I'm going to use my VersaMark. Now this is a pretty large stamp, so I do want to make sure I get good coverage on here. So I am going to go over it quite a few times just to make sure when I close my lid, I might not have to repeat this. Swing my lid over, and then I'm going to go ahead and start pressing down. Again, this is a very large stamp for the Slimline card, so I do make sure that I give it a really good amount of pressure. And I can flip that over, and now I know where my snowflakes are. And I think I got them on the first try. Now all I have to do is heat emboss this. I am going to heat emboss this in a white embossing powder. So I'll pull that off of the sticky mat. And there's like 2 corners of this where there's no snowflakes. That's kind of how the stamp is made. So it gives me the opportunity to kind of hold on to my vellum and get all of that embossing powder placed on there nicely. Any excess I would tap back off into my container. Once I have this done, I'm going to heat set this. I do make sure, because I'm using vellum, to keep that heat gun moving. I'm not holding it in one place for too long. And then this is also going to help me with the warping of it. So if I keep the gun going, and it might take me a little bit longer to heat emboss this, but that's okay. I'm not going to get so much bowing in my paper. So if you're working with vellum, try to go over a couple times with your heat gun instead of like right away to it, because that's going to prevent your vellum from like curling up on itself. And I'm able to get all of these done. And again, it might take me a little bit longer, but I'm going to have less warping. So as you can see, I don't have a lot of warping in this. It looks pretty flat. And that's because I'm continuously letting that gun do its work without me holding it all in one place. So you can see I keep turning the panel, going from top to bottom, making sure I get everything melted. But when I lift this up, you're going to see I did not get a lot of warping in this. So I'm going to go ahead and press this down on my desk and just give it a one smooth over just to kind of flatten everything out. Okay, now it's time to move over to those strips that we made. I have a white piece of cardstock here, and I'm just going to line it with adhesive. I want to make sure I have adhesive all over this paper because I need to have something to lay those stripes on. So make sure I use my Gina K, and this is the adhesive roller, and I'll start lining up these little strips. Now, you can also do this on copy paper if you wanted to, but I wanted to give this a little bit more stability, so that's why I have this cardstock. Now, the cardstock is just 80-pound cardstock, so it's not very thick, but I thought that this would give me a better place to lay these down instead of just on a piece of typing paper. Once I get one in place, I make sure to bump the next one right up next to it to try to ensure that I don't have any of those gaps in there. So as you can see, I push that down and then rub my finger over it. And this ensures that each stripe is going to be right next to each other when I go to die cut this out. All right, I have my panel done, and I kind of want this panel to go on a diagonal. So I'm going to put it in my paper trimmer, and first I'm going to cut off the extra white piece. I don't need this piece, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And for the pieces, the color pieces, I kind of want this to be on a diagonal across my card. So what I like to do is kind of put one tip of the corner into the slot where I'm going to cut. And then I just line up the other edge of where I want it. So as you can see, I'm making sure that bottom tip is right in the groove of where I need to cut. And once I get it where I like it, I can go ahead and close that down and cut right on that line. And that's going to give me almost like a splice on this. And when I pull that away, I have this really cool, like almost wonky kind of cover. And then once I place this on top, look how pretty that is. I'm having that nice diagonal line, but I'm also showing some of those snowflakes. I thought this would just be a great concept for a card. Now, since I have all of that glued together, I do want to back this with something. So I pulled out a piece of the teal paper from the Jewel Slimline paper, but I'm only putting glue behind the part that has the stripes on it. This is going to give me just a little bit more stability there, and I don't want to put any glue yet of where my snowflakes are, where the vellum is, because you might end up seeing that glue. So I'm going to show you how to get around that. So you see that this piece still kind of like flips up. To get around that, I'm looking at the center of the snowflakes, and that's where I'm going to put some adhesive. So I'll put a little bit of adhesive down, stick down a snowflake, and you're never going to see that adhesive. So I did that in a few spots on the card. That's going to keep that vellum piece down. Now we can go ahead and start finishing up our card. Look how gorgeous that looks. I love the snowflakes. Now I need to put this together, but I also need my sentiment. Now this sentiment is from that Slimline snowflake, and it's rather large, just like the one I showed you earlier with the Fa La La. So I'm going to try to figure out before I stamp where I might place this, because I don't want to cover up too much of the snowflakes or too much of the lines. So I'll bring back in my Misty, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this out on navy cardstock, just like I did the other one. I'll hold that in place with my magnet, and then I'm going to place that towards the top of the cardstock because I can use what's left over at the bottom. I do want to heat emboss this, so I will close my lid and pick that up. And now I need to make sure that I use my anti-static bag so I don't have embossing powder everywhere. All right, once I get that on there, I do want to lift this up first just to make sure I have my sentiment where I want it on that paper. And then I can go ahead and use my VersaMark. Now, these are two really easy cards to make, but I wanted to just show you with the ink combos guide, if you did not have the inks, just look to see what's in your stash and see what paper could work with those ink combo colors. It does not always have to be ink. So I love the variety packs from scrapbook.com because you get so many colors in a pack that I'm pretty sure I might be able to go through their paper packs and find a color combination which might match almost all of the inks for the ink combo guide. So just keep that in mind. Once again, if you don't have inks or you don't have the inks that we have here, then just pull paper because paper is going to work just the same. So I went ahead and I finished that off, and now I'm going to bring in some white embossing powder. I didn't want to do gold this time. I thought I would do white because that yellow color paper I have in the stripes is taking place of my gold. So I'll tap off any excess here, and then I can go ahead and heat this with my heat gun. And I love how big these sentiments are. I mean, you could totally just put this on a card and you would need nothing else. A pretty little background with this large statement on the top, and you can instantly mass produce your holiday cards. So keep that in mind. All these cards that you do don't have to be fancy. Some of them can be very clean and simple, and using these larger stamps like this makes that happen just perfectly. Once again, I am going to bring in my paper trimmer and use that technique I used a little bit earlier, lining up the sentiment with my guide and trimming off the excess. Again, that's going to help me know that I'm going to have even spaces next to my sentiment. So there is like a plastic piece. I line up the bottom of the letters or the side of the letters with that, and then I draw my blade. And now I know that everything's going to be centered on that little square that we have. Now we can go ahead and bring in the card and we can finish off this card. So look how pretty that looks. Again, using paper instead of inks, I was also able to achieve the same thing. And when you die cut with those slimline dies, you're going to have so many strips of paper that you can really jazz up maybe 3 or 4 cards at one go. So go ahead and press that into place. And then I do want to pop up that ho ho ho. And I like the fact that I can still see the pattern of the snowflakes behind it. So once again, I'll come in with my 3M foam tape. My 3M foam tape has been getting a workout, y'all, in this room. I actually went through my smaller roll and I had to order another Big Mama off of Amazon. All right, I place this down and then I'm going to get this onto my card base. All right, once I've turned off the backing, I can press this down. And again, that yellow paper in there has replaced my gold accent, but I do want to add maybe a little bit more gold to this. So once I get that in place, I'm going to grab some gems and I'm going to place those around the sentiment. So I'm going to put some at the top, some at the bottom, and a little bit on the sides. And again, I didn't go too crazy with these. They're just little flat back metallic gems. I think these are from Pretty Pink Posh. Once I get those in place, this card is done. So you can now see how you can use paper to pull in those color combos as well. So let me go back really quick. This is the first card we had, and this is the second. Same exact color palette. One is done with inks, and one is done with paper. So don't forget that you can use those papers any way you want them to still achieve those color palettes. Again, I like to use the large Slimline paper pads because they have so many colors in them. So I have 2 of the larger Slimline and 1 of the regular, and that's what the paper came from. I used that blue there. I ended up using that yellow gold, and then the 2 blues came right out of the jewel pack. All right, and you see that paper works perfectly. All right, everybody, that is a wrap. Day 9 is behind us. Day 10 is on deck on Friday. That will be your last day of the card series. I cannot wait to share with you what I have in store. Take care, everybody, and see you soon.